Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So before we get started with the hands-on part, I would request you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You will find tons of amazing hands-on videos on DevOps as well as on Cloud DevOps. Also team, batch 9 of DevSecOps and Cloud DevOps is starting from 25th of March, and as of now we are having a discount of 1500. That means you'll be able to get the course for 8500 only. Talking about this course, so there will be total 150 plus hours of comprehensive content including live sessions and recorded classes, plus there will be total 20 mega projects. In these mega projects we are going to have cloud DevOps project, we are going to have multi-tier projects with a different kind of database like MongoDB, MySQL and Postgres as well. Then we are going to have microservice based project, and there are going to be so many different kind of projects. So yeah, all those will be included, and there will be total 14 modules. Also team, for those who are going to transition to DevOps domain, I'll be guiding you directly about how to showcase your DevOps knowledge and how to prepare your resume. Plus, whenever your interview gets scheduled, you can connect to me one-to-one so that I can guide you about the interview. Okay. So yeah, with that being said, let's get started. And yeah, you can check out all the details in the description. The project that we are going to implement today, and let me explain you the whole project, the tech stack and everything that we are going to implement today. So everything that we are going to do, it will be in multiple phases, where phase 1 will be to make sure that we have our repositories set up. Phase 2 will be to set up complete infra, including all the specific servers, tools, and cluster that we are going to utilize. Then we have phase 3, where we are going to set up our CI/CD pipeline. That also we are going to make sure that it's automated so that it requires minimal intervention. Then we Guys, I'll just stop the session, then there won't be any point for this. I just said that, and do not unmute. Then we have phase 4, where we are going to perform complete monitoring inside Kubernetes. Okay. So this will be the whole phase. So first of all, let us understand the whole flow, what technology, what tech stack we are going to use. So first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a virtual machine. Let's call it as virtual machine 1. This will be our core server from where we are going to set up our cluster, manage the cluster. Okay, so this will be the point from where we are going to set up the cluster. And why we are needing separate VM to do that? Because sometimes it will be needed that we need to run some or certain commands directly inside the Kubernetes cluster. In that case, we need to have separate VM where we can execute commands. Talking about this VM, so on this VM, we are going to install certain tools. What tools we will be needing? First, we'll be needing Terraform, because we want to follow IAC also, so that we can set up our cluster using Terraform. Then Helm also we are going to use. Helm we are going to use, as I said, this is going to be a capstone project where we are going to integrate everything. So we are going to use Helm to set up our monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana. Then we have AWS CLI. So when we want to interact with our AWS account, then we are going to execute commands through AWS CLI. Then we have EKS CTL. Now EKS CTL is a tool, is a kind of CLI that is going to help you interact with CloudFormation. As you know, like we have Terraform, which is an IAC tool. Similar to that, inside AWS we have CloudFormation, which is also a kind of IAC tool. So when we see, for Terraform, we create TF files, right? TF extended files inside which we define configuration. But for CloudFormation, we can define the configuration of whatever resource we want to create using EKS CTL. And EKS CTL also we are going to use, and I'm going to explain later on when like where exactly we are going to use. So first VM will be this, and these are the tools that will be installed inside it. Okay. Another tool that we'll be needing will be kubectl, so that we can interact with our Kubernetes cluster. Talking about the cluster. So inside cluster, first of all, see, generally in companies, we are going to set up Nexus, Jenkins, and every single tool inside Kubernetes. But many people will think, okay, do we always set up these tools inside Kubernetes? No. So it depends. If you are having like hundreds of projects or 20 plus or 30 plus projects, in that case, definitely you should be setting up these tools inside Kubernetes cluster. But if you just have one project or two projects which you are working with, then it's not going to be a very good thing to set up inside it. Why? Because if you are just working with one or two simple projects, then separately setting up Kubernetes cluster and running Jenkins inside it, it's going to cause a lot of resources. Okay, so remember that. Then what we are going to do then, so for this project we are going to set up Nexus, SonarQube, and Jenkins over Linux machine. Many companies do use it. If we have just like some single or very small kind of projects, then they can directly set all these tools on separate those Linux servers. Okay. Now let us understand why exactly which tool we need and for what reason. So first we have Jenkins. Now Jenkins we need to create CI/CD pipelines. Okay, where we are going to write our pipelines, and this CI/CD pipeline is going to make sure that our application is built properly, tested, security checks have been run, and then only it is being deployed. For that purpose, we'll be needing a tool known as Jenkins. Then we'll be having SonarQube. Now, what is SonarQube? SonarQube is another tool that is going to help us find vulnerabilities or issues in the code. Generally what we are going to do, we are going to keep our source code inside GitHub repository. Now it is possible that inside that code, inside that source code, there could be so many issues. What kind of issues? There could be bugs, could be there could be some improperly improperly written code. There could be some issues in the code. Okay, that means before the application is built, before that, okay, that means code is simply kept, but there are issues in the code or the way it is written. Okay, so those issues can be find out by SonarQube, and SonarQube can generate a report. Now this report is usually shared to developers. Why? Because they are the one who is writing the source code. So once we share the report to them, that and telling them that okay, in these lines of the source code there are multiple issues, so developers can fix it. And the benefit of SonarQube, as you can see, before deploying itself, we can find what kind of issues is existing in our source code, right? So SonarQube will be for that. Then we have Nexus. Now the thing is, when you build an application, you package an application, you get some byproduct which is known as artifact. In many cases, artifact is going to be an executable file. When I say executable file, that means it's a single application, a single file or single package that you can run to start the application. For example, when we are working with Java application, so when we build Java application, we get a file like jar. And if you get jar file, you can simply test application by running it using a command java-jar, then whatever name of jar file. So this is a command that will start the application. That means this is an executable file. Okay, and this is also going to be known as artifact. So now the thing is, when you have different code, let's say developers wrote a code, I built the application, generated jar file. Okay, let's call it as a.jar. But after some time, let's say developer added some new features, then we again build. This time the jar will be different. Why? Because some new code is added, that means some new feature will be there. So that means if we are building our application multiple times with different code, then there will be different versions of the application. So if we have different versions, how do we manage it? So the thing is, when you have multiple jar files, you can store those jar files inside your platform, a tool known as Nexus. Okay, I'll explain you and I'll show you also how exactly it's going to be utilized. So Nexus is going to be, in short, you can call it as artifact repository. You can store artifacts of like Python, .NET, then you can store the packages of like Node.js based application, all sorts of packages you can store here. So these are the three core tools that we are going to work with. Coming to next thing that we are going to have in our cluster. The thing is key when we talk about best practices. So that by default, when we set up Kubernetes cluster, one user will be there, which is root user, who will have complete permission to do everything. But when we are talking about deploying our application from Jenkins to Kubernetes, then obviously it's not going to be a good practice to use root user. As you all know that using root user or giving access of root user to everyone or everywhere, it's not a good practice. So what we do, we create new user. Let's call it as XYZ. This user will be created inside Kubernetes, and this will be known as a service account. Now, what is service account? It's a kind of specific account that you can create with minimal permissions. When I say minimal permission, that means it will be having permissions only to perform specific tasks. Like it will be having permission to, let's say, just deploy and modify. But let's say it's not having permission to delete. Again, these permissions you can decide. So benefit of having a service account is that this will be having specific permission. That means it cannot do anything else other than deployment of specific project. Okay, so we create service account and we generate its credentials. So when we have its credentials, this will be the only thing that will be needing to deploy application to our cluster. Again, benefit is that it's going to having minimal access. That means it's going to have access just to deploy and perform nothing else. So this is what we are going to do, and this whole thing is known as RBAC. That means role-based access control. That means, we can first create role. Inside role, I can define that permission to perform deployment to specific namespace, or let's say permission to perform only deployment, only update, and all those things only to specific namespace. Okay, whichever namespace you want. That means this permission is limited to namespace, specific one. Okay, so yeah, then it's role based access control. That's what we are going to do. Okay, and this is a part of best practice that we have to do. Now the thing is ki inside role we define key on what services permission will be given. For example, like I want to perform deployment, so permission will be there for performing creating like deployment, creating services, right? So but there are certain services, or there are certain resources that require higher permissions, like a storage. Okay, so when this some resources are there which require higher permissions, for that you have to create cluster level role. Roles are again going to be two kind. One is going to be namespace level, one is going to be cluster level. Namespace level roles are going to be specific to namespace only. That means they will be applied only to specific namespace. But when you create a role that is on cluster role, or cluster level role, it's going to be applied, or it's going to be valid over complete cluster. Okay, so depending on requirement, we are going to create certain roles. Okay, roles on some roles will be on namespace level, some roles will be on cluster level. Finally, we are monitoring we have to do. So monitoring we are going to need certain tools. Now as I told, this is going to be Capstone project, so here we are going to use Helm, so that I can show you and explain you also how exactly we use Helm to create resources, and you will also see how easy it becomes while working with Helm. Okay, so this will be our phase 1, where we create the complete infrastructure. Talking about phase 2, sorry, phase 1 is repo setup, and let me show you the it's a Terraform code, and I'll share you use the same code, how exactly you can use it and what things you have to modify. Second repository we are going to have, which is going to be CI repo. Now in company, see, you can create a pipeline that has CI/CD both together. But when we talk about best practice, it's not going to be a good thing. So we are going to have a one repository which is going to be separately for CI only. Second repository we are going to have, which is for the CD. Okay. And inside CD, we are going to have manifest files. And as I said, we are going to have so many things. First, manifest, which is going to create deployment resources, deployment services, ingress, cluster issuer we have, and we have horizontal pod autoscaler. These things will be there. So 3 repositories will be there. Okay. Now, coming back to our phase 3, where we have to create CI/CD pipeline. Now, let me explain you side by side what steps we are having. Here, this is going to be a Git repo where we have the CI code. Okay, actual application code will be there. Then, in order to automate the process, what we want that, let's say this is my Git repo, and this is my let's say Jenkins pipeline. So my requirement is that as soon as developers, because developers are the one who's mostly going to push to our GitHub repository. So as soon as developers push the code to GitHub, it should trigger the pipeline. That means there will be proper automation. My requirement, my intervention won't be needed immediately. Okay, so this automation that as soon as developer pushes something, it should trigger the CI pipeline. This we can achieve using a concept known as webhook. It's something that we have to configure, and once we configure, then as soon as developer pushes anything to Git to specific branch, then only the pipeline will be triggered. Okay, then we have compile. Now compile is basically a process done to find out if there is any kind of syntax based error or not. Syntax based means if you have missed some kind of bracket, some kind of comma, then it's going to give compilation error and your pipeline is going to fail. Then we have testing. Generally we are going to have unit testing, but again you can have other testing also. Okay, testing is just several test cases will be written by developers or testing team, and it's going to just verify everything. After that, we are going to perform something that is known as Trivy FS scan. Trivy is another security tool that is going to perform a system a file scanning of your whole repository, and it's going to find if configurations are done properly or not. The code that you have written, like Kubernetes YAML manifest files, those are properly written or not. They should not be misconfigured. One more tool that I wanted to explain about, that I'll be uploading video later on. Guys, please mute again and again. I'm saying, please mute. I will just remove them. Okay. Now let's talk about another security tool, which is which I'm not going to implement today, but I will explain. You know, when we talk about DevSecOps pipeline, the whole point is that first of all, you should be following best practices. Secondly, you should be integrating security at every stage. Okay. First, we did compilation, that is the initial stage. Second, we did testing, second stage. Third, we did Trivy file system. That means at every stage we are integrating security. We're making sure that after every time something new is integrated, something new is built, it should be properly tested. Okay. Next, the tool, there is one more tool which is known as Git leaks. We used to use in our company. So GitLeaks is basically a tool which is going to scan your source code and find if any sensitive data is there. For example, let's say you have stored any kind of API key, you have stored any kind of like token. These are like sensitive data, some kind of password. So these are some sensitive data that should not be existing in your source code. So GitLeaks is a tool that will be able to find that. I'll be uploading a video soon on that. Okay, coming to next, we have SonarQube. As I explained, SonarQube is a type of SAST tool, static application security testing. When I say static, it means that application has not been deployed. Application is still in the source code format. Okay, so SonarQube is going to scan the whole source code and find what kind of issues are there in the code. That means the way the code is written, if it is wrongly written, if there is some kind of duplication, some kind of bugs are there, based on that, it's going to generate a report, and we need to share that report to developers team to find and let us know, to find and fix the issues. Okay, and it is one of the most widely used and highly useful. Okay, second, we have quality gate check. The thing is ki, we have our own threshold. Let's say uh, I say ki in my source code there should not be more than 10 issues. Okay, so this is like a condition that I'm setting up. So once SonarQube report is generated and developers has fixed, so we are going to compare with the condition that we have set up. That means our source code should not be having more than 10 issues. If it is 11 issues, then again developers need to fix. So this is the condition and this needs to be checked, and this whole process is known as quality gate check. We need to check again. One more thing I'll tell you. SonarQube does two main things. One is code quality check. When we say code quality check, how do we measure the quality? So basically, if we have very less issues means very less bugs, very less and everything, then we say code quality is better. When those issues are so much, then we say code quality is not good. Second thing SonarQube does, which is known as code coverage. Now, you might know that we have to execute testing, right? Why do we run testing? Because let's say we have 100 lines of code and we wrote 10 test cases, right? So the purpose of this 10 test cases is to test 100 lines, right? Test the whole source code. So if running 10 test cases is able to test 100 lines, then we say code coverage is 100%. But let's say I executed all the 10 test cases and it was able to test only 80 lines. Then we say 80% is code coverage. Again, in companies, 80% is the minimum code coverage. That means minimum 80% of the code should be tested before it is deployed. So these are the two things that SonarQube does. Okay. Then we have application building. So application C, be it Java, be it any other programming language, there will be some kind of artifact generated. Artifact is, in some cases, it's going to be simply a package that is required for running the application. In some cases, it's directly executable file, like in Java. Okay. So then here we are building that. Then we have Nexus, where we are going to store the artifact for later usage. Or if you want to like roll back to previous artifact, we can select that, do that as well. Then we have Docker. So the thing is, before we deploy the application to Kubernetes, we need to package the application with all the dependencies and all these whatever kind of environment is required. We need to package the application. That is done using Docker. And again, as I said, multiple changes are there in code. So there could be multiple versions of the Docker image as well. So if we have multiple version of the same package, we need something to store the package. So for that we can use Docker registry. Now Docker registry could be of different type. It could be a public registry, it could be a private registry, but generally in companies obviously they are going to use a private registry. Again, now the thing is ki, companies are very much like they try to keep everything private. Generally we use a public Docker registry for our practice. In companies they're going to use private can also be set up in many ways. For example, you can use ECR, which is on AWS platform, Elastic Container Registry. You could use ACR, Azure Container Registry. But again, these are registry that is being managed by third party company like Microsoft or AWS. What we do, or what we did in my previous company, we created our own custom private registry that was completely being managed by us. We set up our registry inside Nexus. Yes, Nexus has another feature. That means you can set up private registries inside Nexus. You'll be able to find this kind of video on my channel as well. Okay. Then once we have Docker images built, what we can do, we can scan the Docker image. Before pushing to registry, we can scan the Docker image for any kind of vulnerabilities that could be there. Again, Trivy we could use. Trivy is as I said, Trivy is a very useful tool. It has so many like features. Some of you might be thinking, Aditya, why you are not using OS dependency check tool and only using Trivy? The thing is ki what OS dependency does, same thing can be done by Trivy, plus more can be done by Trivy. Okay, for that purpose I choose to go with Trivy. Okay, now once we have built our Docker image, so I want that the CD pipeline, if CD repository, if I show you, where is it? So here we have this manifest files inside which we have, if I show you, Docker image, right? So as I said, ki multiple times you might be building Docker image. So what I want, as soon as my CI pipeline is completed building Docker image, new Docker image should be updated here. Okay, so that I need to do. So for that, what I can do, I can write a step in my CI pipeline which is going to update the CD repository and update the Docker image name. Once that is done, I want to get notified over my email. So for that also I can configure. Okay, there are, see, obviously in companies they are going to use Outlook, and for Outlook also I have made a video, you can check it out. Generally on YouTube everyone is showing Gmail only, but yeah, Outlook, in companies we are going to use Outlook. If you want, you can check out the video I have made. Then what I want, as soon as CD repository is updated, new Docker image is updated, then I want to, it should automatically trigger my CD pipeline, which is containing a pipeline to deploy the application to Kubernetes. Now what are the resources that we need to create? So these are the resources that we need to create. First, we are going to create a deployment which is going to create replica set, which in turn is going to create the application pod. And then we are going to have this a backup service also for which is going to properly make sure that everything is properly communication is happening, okay, between pods. Then we have a MySQL. So MySQL, again we are going to create deployment, replica set, pod. And the thing is ki all our data is going to be stored inside MySQL pod. So for that we want, the data should be persisting. That means it should not be getting lost. For that we are going to set up a third party kind of storage. For that we can use EBS volumes inside AWS. We can create EBS volume using storage class, and then we can use persistent volume claim. The thing is ki, let's say we have storage created inside Kubernetes. So if some pod want to access that storage, I want to use that storage, they need to claim it using PVC. That means we need to create PVC for that pod. So PVC, once we create, it will be able to access the persistent volume, and volume is created using storage class. Okay. Next, what we are doing, we are creating ingress. Why we are creating ingress? So that this external traffic can be properly managed, and external traffic will be allowed properly. Okay, some of you might be thinking why we are not using load balancer. So load balancer would not be very much useful when you have like multiple services where you want to access. For example, if you are just going to use load balancer and if you want to access pods, then for each pod you have to create separate load balancer, which is not a good practice. But in case of ingress, it will be like centralized system where you can access all these services. So it's much better option to like access services and provide like allow external traffic as well. Now once we create ingress, there will be separate URL created. So in order to map our custom domain, because I want that my application should be accessible on some kind of custom URL like this. So what we have to do, we have to open its DNS records. Okay, domain name system records. There we have to modify records. Now there are two main records that we generally modify. One is a record, one is CNAME record. Okay, I'll show you also. In simple ways, just understand that, you know, when we deploy an application inside EKS cluster on Azure, so there we do not get the URL, we get an IP. When you get IP, you just modify IP inside a name. But in case of AWS, we get URL. So URL you have to modify inside CNAME. This much you remember. And once we do that, then custom domain is done. But still, like certificate, it's not having certificates. So for that, we have to create a cluster issuer, which is going to create SSL certificate, and it's going to get free certificates from an organization that is known as Let's Encrypt. Okay. And this is the whole system that we are going to implement today. I hope this is clear. Again, later on, so I would suggest watch it again so that you don't forget anything. Okay, now let us start with the phase one. So phase one, like repositories are already created. Next thing we can do is create our, we can focus and we can create our this one. Sorry, where is it? We can create the resources. Okay, so for that, let us create first certain virtual machines. So I'll be needing Jenkins, SonarQube, Nexus, and one more VM, which is the central server. So 4 virtual machines I'm going to create. First, I'm going to create 3. Jenkins separately will create. Taking the size of the machine as 24.04, which is going to be the LTS version, long-term support, and it's one of the stable versions. Size we can select T2 medium, which is best suited. Key we can select. Talking about security groups, so let me just also to make sure you are selected the region that is nearest to you. Okay, just to show you the ports that I generally keep open on my platform. If I go to security group, this, and we have, these are the ports that I generally keep open. Here, make sure that you have this. Okay, yeah, these are the ports that I generally keep open on my platform. Coming back, here we can create these machines, and storage I'm giving 25 to each one of them. Okay, coming back. So let me just name them so that it's easier. And here it will be SonarQube. And here we can name it to Nexus. Sorry, this will be, let's keep it as server. One more machine I'll be creating, which will be Jenkins. So the thing is, I'm not separately creating a slave machine. So I will be creating Jenkins machine as little bit big server. And Jenkins, I can go with T2 large. But if you are creating like the slave machine, then you can create T2 medium, both of them. Storage also same. And 25 storage. Okay. So now let us connect to these machines one by one. First of all, I'm going to go with server because that's where we are going to create our EKS cluster. So I can go here, session. This is a Mobax term for those. Why I'm using this tool? This is because this is one of the best freely available tool for those even who are working in companies. You can still install this tool because there is a portable version of this tool available. So you can click on SSH, provide the IP address, username you can provide, which is going to be Ubuntu in our case. Here we have to provide the private key, which is present on my local machine. You can give it a name also. This is server. If you want, you can give it a color also like this, just for the ease of it. And this is done. Okay, and let me confirm server is connected. So one by one, I'll connect to all the machines. Then we have Jenkins. And here I can go, click create a duplicate of it, rename this to Jenkins. And since all of them are using the same key, so I can simply modify the IP address. Again, I'll create duplicate, rename this, and this time we are going to connect to SonarQube. Update, and name also we can update. And one more we are going to create, which is going to be for Nexus. Okay. Let me just confirm everything seems fine. Okay, so first of all, we are on the next central server. Okay, so whenever you create a virtual machine, first thing that you have to do is run the update command and update all the packages so that all those packages are ready and available for usage. So first thing I'm going to run sudo apt update. Then I have the command. Now, first thing that we need to do, first command that we need to run, second command on our central server is to make sure that this VM has permissions to create resources. So for that, there are multiple ways to do that. Like that VM needs permission to create resources in our AWS account. One option that you can go with, you can create a specific, you can go to like IAM. Here you need to create a specific user and create certain roles like permission to create EKS cluster and like that, and you can assign that role to that user. Create you have to create a credential of that user and add it in your VM. Once you do that, then your VM will be having permission. But for testing purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to generate root credentials that you can do from here. And in access keys, you can click on create access key, check it and create. Now this is the key that we can use, and once we add this key in our VM, then VM will be having permission to create the resources. So first thing that we need to have is AWS CLI so that our VM can communicate with our AWS account. We can copy this and let's wait for this to get installed. Okay, now this is done. So next thing that we are going to do is run a command AWS configure. Now here we have to provide the credentials that we just created that we will be able to get from here. This is the access key, and then we'll be able to get the secret access key as well. And then we have to provide region name, which will be like this. In my case, it's going to be Mumbai. And for output format, you can just leave it as it is, and then we can clear. Now our VM is having permission to create resources. So next thing that we need to have is install Terraform. Now the thing is key Terraform installation. See, if I run here, Terraform, you can see there is a command or there is a snap package to install Terraform. But the problem with the snap package is going to be, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to just install Terraform. That is the reason that I don't prefer to use it. And instead I can go with like adding the repository and then installing Terraform. Let's wait for this to get completed as well. And I can see Terraform has installed. Next thing that we need to do is clone the 𝗖𝗍 repository, the repository that is having the code of creating the cluster. Okay, before we do that, let me just show you one more thing. So when you are going to use this account, make sure that whatever key that you are having, SSH key, private key, put that name here. And that is the only thing that you need to change. Other than that, if you are in different region other than India, then you have to change the region also. Yeah, here, availability zones, you have to change it if you are in different region. Okay, yeah, here also. So make sure to note that. Other than that, nothing you need to modify, everything works fine. Okay, so now we can clone this repository on our VM. Git clone this username. Okay, and now we have to provide password. So for password, you can simply let me open. You can go on your profile. You can go to settings. You can go to developer settings, personal access token, and tokens classic. Here, as of now, one token is already created. If you want to, like, if you are working with your account and if you are keeping the repositories private, which I would recommend to keep it private, so you can create your own token. Make sure to click classic token, and then you can set up permissions. For example, okay, it will take time. So you can just create token from here, and then you can use that token to access the repo. Okay, so let me provide the token. Give me 1 second. I don't know. Okay, let me share again. Okay, I hope my screen is visible now. Okay, so going back here. So now what we have done, we have provided the credentials and we have the repository ready here. Okay, so we can go inside the repository and we have this files available. Now I can run the command terraform init so that it can be initialized and all the required whatever dependency or anything is required that can be downloaded, and later on we can run the command to create the cluster. Okay, and now I can run the command terraform apply --auto -approve. Why I am adding auto approve? This is because the thing is ki if you don't add auto approve, then it's going to ask a prompt. If I show you, you can see it is asking, do you want to perform this action? It's kind of prompt coming. But the problem is that if you are running Terraform command through a pipeline or through some kind of automated job, in that case, you won't be having time or you won't be getting a direct prompt to put like yes. In that case, you can go with --auto -approve. This means that permission is already given. Okay, and we can click enter, and now it's going to create total 19 resources. Okay, so we will wait for it, and this is going to take 10-15 minutes, I guess. Meanwhile, one more thing that I have to do. I'll go here, cloud formation. The thing is we'll be creating one more resource like a service account. We'll be creating that. So it was already created. I have removed it so that I can show you from scratch. Okay, let me delete. Okay, it's getting deleted. Coming back here. So now this is getting done. Now we can start setting up other tools. So we can go to Jenkins. And again, first thing, sudo apt update. Now remember that Jenkins is a tool that for the prerequisite for Jenkins is that there should be one Java present on the VM or pod wherever you are going to set up Jenkins. Okay, so after we run this command sudo apt update, next thing that we have to do, install Java. Okay, and that we can do if I run this Java and this -y. This. Now it's going to install Java. Once it is meanwhile it is getting installed, I can go here, I can search install Jenkins, click on the first option Linux, select the machine you are having. So I'm working with Debian machine. Also, just to let you know, team, in my company we were using Debian machine for almost everything. Yeah, just for the sake of it. Okay, so we can use the LTS version because it is one of the long term. It's kind of stable version. So I can run it here. Okay. Meanwhile, we can connect to SonarQube and Nexus as well. So first thing that we have to do on SonarQube as well, sudo apt update. Same thing on Nexus. We can run sudo apt update. Okay. So I guess Jenkins is done. Now, before we connect to Jenkins, or we can simply right connect to Jenkins. By default, it will be Jenkins will be running on port 8080. So you need to make sure that port 8080 is open. Okay, so I can get the public IP address of the machine, put it here, colon 8080. See, as of now, we have not at all configured the like SSL certificate for Jenkins, but that can be done. If you are working with a Linux machine, that is very easy to do. You can check out one of my recent video, I guess. There will be able to find. So now I can run cat command. So this is the initial admin password. This is the file that contains initial admin password. Now, why it is giving permission denied? Because this this directory where it requires elevated permission. So what I can do, I can simply go in the beginning and type sudo, and this is the initial admin password that we can use. So I can copy that, paste it here, click on continue. And here we have two options. Now, obviously Jenkins knows better which plugins are mandatory for it to install. So we are going to go with first options, the suggested plugins. And this is going to take a little bit of time depending on network speed as well as the VM size. So now this is done. This is being done. We can go back to SonarQube and Nexus. Okay. So SonarQube and Nexus, we are going to set up using this one. We can set up using Docker, but there are ways to set it up inside this one Kubernetes cluster also. I have that command, I think, somewhere. Yeah. So yeah, you can set up inside Kubernetes also, and generally it's going to be set up inside Kubernetes. Coming back here. So first we are going to install Docker here, and see, the reason that I was saying in the beginning that it's not going to be always set up inside Kubernetes cluster. The reason that we set up our SonarQube and these tools inside Kubernetes cluster, because we were working on around, I think, 400 plus platforms, our own applications that were deployed inside Kubernetes. So for that purpose, we have to set up our Jenkins inside Kubernetes. But if we are just working on one application, then there is no point in setting up separate cluster for your tools like this Jenkins and all. Okay. Now Docker we have installed, but by default only root user has permission to execute Docker commands. So what we need to do, we need to give this user, the Ubuntu user with which currently we are logged in, the permission to run Docker commands. That we can do by running sudo usermod -a capital G Docker, and you can write $user. Now what is it? What it's going to do? It's going to add current user, which is Ubuntu, to Docker group. Now whatever permission Docker group is having, that will be given to Ubuntu, and that means Ubuntu will be having permission to access the configuration file, and then it will be having permission to execute Docker commands. Click enter. Now we have added Ubuntu user to Docker group, but still it's not having these changes are not yet reflecting. So for that, what you can do, either you can log out and log in, or you can run this command new group Docker, and these changes will be applied. Now what we have to do, we have to run a command to create Docker container for SonarQube. For that I can run docker run -d for detached mode. That means all the logs will be running in background or not on the front ground. Okay. -d. You can give a name also, -name, sonar, then port. So by default SonarQube runs on port 9000, and this is first port is the host port. Host port means this VM port. Okay. Second port is the container port. That means this port will be on the container. Okay. And now SonarQube image, which we can write SonarQube :ls dash community. Okay, so it's going to create. Meanwhile, we can go to Nexus, and here also we need to install Docker, and we can let's wait for it. So SonarQube is created. We can check it by running command docker ps. We can see that it's running. So we can try to connect to it. Getting this port will be 9000. Okay. Meanwhile, we can set up Jenkins, and password we can set up. Full name and email, anything you can put for the time being. So Jenkins is set up, but still we need to configure a lot of things. Coming back to SonarQube. So yeah, it's in starting stage. Okay. So yeah, let's wait for it. Meanwhile, we can go to Nexus, and I think we did install Docker. So here also permission change we need to do. Sudo usermod -a capital G Docker, and then we have Ubuntu you can write, or you can write $user, both are same. And now for changes to be applied, new group Docker. Okay, so this is done, and now I can run the command docker run -d -name. You can give a name like Nexus 3. Port by default it will be running on port 8081. So make sure that it is open, and here we can type sonar type / Nexus 3, I think. Let's see. Okay, so it's going to set up. Now remember one thing, when you set up Nexus, minimum requirement for Nexus to work is minimum 4 GB storage should always be available. If not, then you are going to get some kind of crash loop backup error or some kind of database error. So make sure that it has always. Okay, and Nexus also we can try to access on browser. Port will be 8081. So now SonarQube by default is having username and password as admin. So we can put that and log in. And now we have to change the password. So let us change the password. Okay. SonarQube is also set up and we have Jenkins set up, but yeah, it needs to be configured a lot. I can see Nexus is not yet running. As I said, it's going to take a little bit more time as compared to other servers. So let me click again. Yeah, so we have to wait for some time. Meanwhile, we can check status here. You can see AWS cluster, EKS cluster is still getting created. Okay, Nexus is now up. For Nexus also, we need to set up password. How do we do? How can we do that? So we can click on sign in, and here username is going to be admin. Password is stored on this location in this file, correct? How do we find it? So since we have created Docker container, so we need to go inside the container. So first I'll run Docker PS to get the container ID. And then I can go inside this container ID running the command docker exec -it, then container ID, and then the terminal which you want to use. So I want to use bin/bash. Many of you might think why I'm writing bin. So bin is a directory which is going to contain the binaries or basically the executable files. So for that, and now we are inside, I can run this. Now we need to go inside Sonar type work Nexus. And here you can see the first file named admin.password. So let us access that. And we got the initial admin password, which we have to copy from here to here. Do not copy bash. And we can paste it here. Click on sign in. Click next, and we can set up new password. So now Nexus is set up and agree. See, you see this option, enable anonymous access and disable anonymous access. So basically, depending on what is the requirement. Anonymous access, anyone can access the files if they have the URL, they don't need credentials. But disable, then credentials will be needed. So for now, let us disable only. Finish. Now, I think everything is set up except the cluster. Okay. Now, let us configure Jenkins and start writing our pipeline. So first thing that we have to do, we have to go to manage Jenkins and we have to install certain plugins which will be needed for us. We can go to plugins, available plugins, and here, first thing that I am going to search is going to be SonarQube first. Actually, one more thing I'll tell you, team. Many of you might not know at this point that when we talk about SonarQube, it's not just a single tool. There is two components in SonarQube. One is known as SonarQube server. One is known as SonarQube scanner. Now, scanner is the actual tool who is going to perform the analysis and generate the report. Okay, and this thing that you are seeing, this is the SonarQube server. So when the report is generated, it's going to be published to server, and then we like DevOps engineers or developers are going to view that. So remember that there are two components: scanner, who is the actual component that performs analysis and generates report. Server is the location where the reports are published for viewing. Okay. SonarQube is done. Next thing that we have to do, I'll search for config file provider. Maven integration you have to install, and let me search one more thing, Maven pipeline Maven integration. Then we are going to search for Docker. Now this I'm not going to install. I'm going to install this Docker pipeline, and then let's install for Kubernetes as well. So I'm going to install this, and this also. The thing is, many of them are interdependent. Kubernetes plugins are many of them are interdependent, so we are installing them. So let us install, and now it's going to take a little bit of time to completely get installed. Meanwhile, we can check the status here. As I said, this is going to take a lot of time. 10-15 minutes it's going to take. Okay. So let's. Okay. I guess all of them are completed, and now we can get started by creating our pipeline. Let's go here. Okay. So as I said, I did not install Docker plugin directly inside the Jenkins. What I'm going to do, I'm going to install Docker here. Okay. So I'm going to search Docker here. Option is available to install Docker. Okay. And version is older version. Newer version is there, but with Snap package. And as I said, Snap package take a lot of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Docker official page, Docker install. Sorry. Click on the first link, and here first command will be able to get to add the package. Sorry, add the repo. Second command will be there to install. Now Jenkins is running, so Jenkins is going to use user Jenkins. That means we need to give permission to user Jenkins to execute Docker commands. That we'll be able to do once it is installed. If you remember, I ran the command sudo user mod -a capital G. -a capital G, basically it's going to append Docker group. Basically what happens, let's say I created one user named Aditya in Linux. So by default, it will be part of one group. The group name is this. And when we run the user mod -a capital G command, what is going to happen? Let's say I write like this, Docker Aditya. Now this Docker group will be appended. Okay, that means added. Previous group is not happening and going anywhere, but new group is added. That means now Aditya user will be having permissions of both these groups. That means whatever permission we have given to Docker group or whatever permission we have given to Aditya group, all those permissions will be available for Aditya user. Okay, so that's what we use -a G. And coming back here, we can add now Docker Jenkins. Now the thing is, we can run one command new group to like apply the changes, but it won't work here because we have not set up the Jenkins password. So what we can do, we can go to our Jenkins server here /restart, and you can restart Jenkins. And now the changes that we have just done, that will be applied. Okay. Still running. So yeah, let's wait for some time. Meanwhile, let's get completed. Okay. So now we can log in to our okay. Now we can go to manage Jenkins and the plugins that we have installed. In order to configure them, we can go to tool section. And here, first let us configure Maven. I can provide the name as any name you can choose. I will just go in Maven 3. A version you can select anything. SonarQube we can configure. I'll provide the name sonar-scanner. Version again you can select. I'm just going with latest one. And rest, everything seems fine. We can simply click on apply. Okay. And now let us create the pipeline. So click on new. This I will provide the name as CI pipeline kind of job we are going to select. Click on OK. Now as part of best practice, we want that in history only 2 or 3 builds will be there. So I will just keep 3, because if you have so many builds, it's going to occupy a lot of space, which we do not want. Scrolling down, and now here. Now if you are very new to Jenkins, you can it's not necessary that you have to write everything from scratch. You can simply go here, generate a hello world, and now you can modify it. Okay, that's what I like to do. So I'll copy this one stage, go to second, and create multiple copies. Just remember, before running, no 2 stage can have the same name. As of now, you can see this is the same name, right? Now, sorry. Here, first stage that we are going to have is Git Checkout. Basically, why we are doing checkout, because Jenkins need to access the code and make changes and everything. So we don't want to do it directly on the repository. So we are going to create a clone, or we are going to create a copy of the source code inside Jenkins, which Jenkins can work with. So I can now, how do we write this stage? So again, if you are new, you can use this option, pipeline syntax, amazing option. Click on that, and you can select Git. So first we have to give repository URL. Repository URL we can give from here. Branch, just make sure that you have correct branch, main branch. You can see it's giving status 128, so that because no credentials has been provided. Now we have to add credentials. So either you can directly click here and see, sometimes it does not work. Okay. So what I'm going to do, let me save this first. Go to dashboard, manage Jenkins. Then there is a location, credentials, where we can add credentials. Click on global, add credentials. Make sure kind is username and password, and username is going to be 46, and password is going to be the token of token of GitHub. Again, let me add it immediately. I can copy it from here. And where is it? Give me 1 second, guys. Let me. Okay, I hope screen visible. Okay, coming back. So I can go here and add the token that we just copied. You can provide any name, but I see the pipeline that I have. I want to keep everything in sync with that. So the credentials names I'll just keep with this one, Git. So I'll see ID, basically, ID we have to give so that if we want to identify like to what the credential belongs to, for that purpose you can put ID. I'll just write Git and create. Okay, and here let us refresh the page. Select Git, repository URL, branch is going to be main, and this time credential we can select, and error is gone. Okay, click on this, copy, and we can paste it here. So the first stage we have written now. Okay, now next thing what we have to do, we want to perform compilation of the code to find out if there is any kind of syntax based error in our pipeline. Again, how do we write it? So we working with Maven, we can write mvn compile. But how do we tell Jenkins that this is a shell command? This is kind of Linux command that you have to run as a shell command. So we have to include it within shell block. How can we do? As such, you can put quotes inside it. And now Jenkins understand that, okay, this pipeline this stage I need to run with shell command. The thing is if you are adding, see, this is a new tool, right? This is a new tool that we configure. Where did we configure? It's Maven tool. And where did we configure? In tool section here. Correct? We have configured inside a tool section. So whichever tool you configure inside tool section and you want to use it in your pipeline, you have to define it in your pipeline. How can we do that as well? So you need to create tools block. The format is going to, this is specific for Java and Maven only. First is going to be tool type. So our Maven is tool type of Maven. Tool name we configured, if you remember, Maven 3. If you see here, Maven 3. Same thing we have written here. Now only it will be able to work. Okay. Next stage we want to add, which is going to be testing. Same way we can write as such mvn test. Okay. Next is, so next what I want to run Trivy. Now as you remember, I did not install Trivy anywhere, right? Trivy fs scan, I did not run Trivy anywhere. So what would be like, how do we execute it? So basically, as this point Jenkins does not have any Trivy plugin. So what we have to do, we have to install directly to Jenkins. Okay. One difference that you need to understand, as I told before also, the tools that you configure inside the Jenkins tools section, those tools you need to define one way or the other in the pipeline. But the tools that you directly install on Jenkins server, then you don't have to define those tools. For example, if I go here, Trivy install, select the machine and copy the command and paste it. Now, since I'm installing Trivy directly on the server, so I don't have to define it anywhere and I can directly run the commands here. How I can run the command? I can write as such Trivy fs. Trivy fs means Trivy, we want Trivy to scan file system, then --format. Then Trivy is going to see, if I just run the command like this, Trivy fs, and the directory means like the directory you want to scan, then it's going to generate the whole report in the console log. But who is going to read every time? Who is going to go every time to console log? So instead of that, what we prefer, we want that Trivy should generate the report in a separate file. So I will write ---- format. Okay. So in what format you want the report? So I want the report into tabular format. So I'll write table, then -o. So I want the report to be output in or exported into a separate file. So I will write, let's say fs-report.html. Okay, that means there will be a new file generated named fs report, inside which we will be having the Trivy report. And here the directory you want to scan. So I'll just put a dot, that means scan the current directory. Okay. Next thing that we want to add. So what I want to do now, I want to perform SonarQube analysis. Okay. So how we can add SonarQube stages? So first thing that we have to do, see, as I told you, SonarQube scanner and server. Scanner we have configured inside where? Inside here. You can see server we have not configured. That means if Jenkins need to perform analysis and generate the report and publish it to SonarQube server, we need to make sure that Jenkins has permissions to access SonarQube server, right? So for that, what we can do, we can go to first manage Jenkins system and scroll down, and you'll be able to see some option like SonarQube server. So this is where we have to configure the server. But before that, we will go to SonarQube, administration, security, users, and we have to generate a token which will be used as authenticator. For authentication can be used. Token generated, I'll copy the token, go back here, go to credentials, global, add credentials. Now it's a token, so we are need to select the kind to secret text. Paste the token here, provide a name like sonar-token and create. Go back to manage Jenkins system. Now, system is the section where you can configure servers, plus system is the section where you can configure the Jenkins backend, or you can say system configuration. Scroll down and go to SonarQube server. Click on add SonarQube. Let's provide a name as Sonar. URL we have to put. First we can select token. URL we can get from here till 9000 you have to copy. Make sure that last slash is removed and apply. Now basically what just happened, we have configured SonarQube scanner also, and server we just now configured. Going back here, go to pipeline syntax. Now here you'll be able to find one section with SonarQube environment, something like that. You can see this, select that, select token, generate. See, writing pipeline is not very complex once you understand everything. So here we can provide the name as SonarQube. Sorry. Actually, in my company, I did a tons of POC on SonarQube. So I did a lot of things on SonarQube backend. I need to create a separate plugin for SonarQube, install it in backend. Those kind of things we did. And POC is like how you can generate report and how you can make that report visible in GitLab. All those things we did. Okay. So here now I can copy the block. Okay. And now the thing is by default, SonarQube expects that inside this block, you should be providing the SonarQube server URL and SonarQube password to access the URL. But that is not going to be good practice because it will be visible here. So what we are going to do, we are going to provide the server details here. If I remove this, now inside this block, if you see closely what I have written with SonarQube environment, right? Basically what it is referring to, this sonar is the name. This sonar is the name that we have given to our configuration. That means if I provide the name, it then automatically the server URL and credentials will be added. Okay. And that's why that is the best way to perform this. Now we need to add some. Now you can see I am using 3 quotes. That means you can, like, if you have multiple lines of code, you can use 3 quotes and you can open here and close in a third line. Now, how, as I told you, whichever tool you define in tool sections, you have to, and if you want to use it in your pipeline, you have to define it in your in your pipeline. So how can we define it? So if I go here, we are going to create an environment. And environment name is going to be scanner_home. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, what exactly I'm doing? Sorry, scanner_home. So basically, let me explain you how exactly SonarQube is going to work. Once you configure the scanner tool, or once you install it on Jenkins machine, so there will be a separate directory created, which will be like home directory. Let's say as home. This is the SonarQube scanner home directory. Inside this, you'll be able to find a directory named bin. Inside bin, there will be one file like this, sonar scanner. Now, what is this file? This is the executable file. If you remember, I told you there are executable files, and if I want to run SonarQube scanner, I can simply start this file, right? And that's exactly I'm going to write it here. First, I'm writing sonar home, sorry, tool, then sonar scanner, the name that we configured, sonar scanner. So basically, what I'm giving the home directory of sonar scanner. 1 second. I think error is coming because of this. So now this is done, and now we need to call this. I need to call this from inside the bin directory. How we can do? Let me show you that as well. So I'm going to write $scanner_home. That means we are providing the home directory /bin/sonar-scanner. Now basically what I'm doing here, I'm simply executing this scanner file, which will start the analysis. Okay. And now we can provide the parameters, which is going to be -d sonar.project name and capital. Make sure. Let's say we have GC bank, Golden Cat Bank. We can go to next line. We have -d sonar.project key. Again, you can put any name. I'm just going with GC bank only. See, these are certain parameters which you need to remember. Again, once you practice enough, you remember automatically these things. Now, since we are working with a Java-based project, so what you have to do, you need to make sure that you are providing the location of binaries file also. And inside Java, binaries file are created or located in a location known as target folder. So I can put the sonar.java.binaries equal to, I'll just put target. Okay. And I will close it. And this is going to perform the SonarQube analysis. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let us run this and let's see. Okay, we have some error. Let me remove this. And let us try to run this and let's see what happens. If there is any error, we can fix it. See, one more thing you'll be able to notice, unpacking. So basically, we have configured SonarQube scanner, but we have not yet installed it on Jenkins. So when you run the pipeline for the first time, it's going to install or it's going to configure everything inside the Jenkins server. Okay, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So let's wait for this. And since we are using only one tool at this point, so it's going to install that only. Okay, and it has started to clone. So first compilation will be done. All the whatever dependencies are needed, it will be downloaded. You can go at the end. Testing has started. Now SonarQube stage is starting. Okay, it is successful. We can go to SonarQube just to verify everything. Okay, things are running fine. So one more thing I need to check. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we have SonarQube stage success, but one more thing you might miss that here we do not have the stage view. So for that, we just need to go to Maven Jenkins plugins. Here you'll be able to find this stage view. Just install it. Once you install, then your pipeline will be visible in a proper stage view format. If I open this again, you can see now stage view format is visible. If I click on this and see the local copy where everything is byproducts and everything is created, it will be stored inside workspaces. Open workspaces, and here you can see all these things. And you can see this file also, fs report. This is the report generated. This is in HTML format. Might not be visible very well at this point, but yeah, report is also generated. So this is working fine. Next step is what? Next step is to see SonarQube analysis we have done, but still we need to perform one more thing, which is to perform code quality gate check. That means to measure. Okay. So let us do that as well. I'll create one more stage. I'll copy this. Go here just before the last two brackets, and we can provide this name as quality gate check. Okay. Now, before you write the steps here, you have to go to SonarQube, administration, configuration, webhooks. Until unless you configure this, your quality gate check won't work. So you need to make sure that you have created webhook here. Then only Jenkins will be able to get information from SonarQube and then like perform the comparison, like if the quality gate check is good or not. So click on create SonarQube webhook, and URL is going to be first Jenkins URL. You have to copy. We can copy and we can paste it here. Just make sure no extra slashes there, no secret we have to provide. Click on create. Once we do that, then only the stage will work. So here, now how do we write the stage? So again, you can take help from pipeline syntax. You can go here, and here we have wait for quality gate. Generate. Now this is the block. So I will copy that, paste it here. The thing is sometimes it runs for very long time, this process. This is simply command that is going to check or compare the quality gate. So the thing is, if you can see here, wait for quality gate, abort pipeline false. That means if quality gate is failed, do we want to stop the pipeline there itself? So for that, false, we don't want to stop. Credentials we have given. Now, as I said, this could go for very long time. So we want to limit that. So for that, we can go here. Here you'll be able to find this timeout. I'll select 1 and hour. That means maximum that stage could go on for 1 hour only. Okay, and I will put it inside this. Let me remove. Okay, this is done. Okay, now it should be working fine. Now let us configure other stages also. Also guys, before we move ahead, so yeah, batch 9 is starting from 25th of March. As of now, we are having a discount of first 50, where you will be able to get a discount of 1500. The course will be priced at 8500. Talking about the course, total 20 mega projects will be there, including multiple database based projects. And for database also, we are using all kind of database. We have projects with MySQL database, we have projects with MongoDB database, we have projects with Postgres database. So in this way, we'll be getting a very good idea about how to integrate databases as well. We have microservice projects, we have IAC projects, we have monitoring projects, all those things. Plus, we are going to focus on learning the things in the same way that it's being done in companies. So me, I have very good experience, and I have at this point I have worked on more than around 35 projects. Previous company I was working on 3-4 projects. Current company I've been handling around 30 projects. So yeah, what I try to give you in the same way, whatever we have learned, whatever task we do, how we set up things and everything, we are going to try to I'm going to try to teach those things only. Okay. Plus, once you complete the session and as soon as your interview gets scheduled, you can connect to me for guidance. And one more thing will be there. If you want to prepare resume, you can connect to me directly. And yeah, for those who want to transition to DevOps, so I can guide you how to showcase your DevOps knowledge, be it with project, be it with different tasks, all those things I can guide with. So yeah, if interested, you can check it out. Again, it's starting from 25th of March. So yeah, make sure to check it out. Details you'll be able to find on the website, as well as you can ping me on Telegram. I'll provide details as well. Okay. Now coming back. So now let's add next step, which is going to be for Maven build. Now we want to build our application. So I can put here stages. Let's say I'll just write the name as build. And here we can write MVN package. Okay. After build is done, we want to store the artifacts to Nexus as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another stage. Okay. This is going to be named as publish artifacts. So Nexus primarily we use for this one. Primarily we used it for Docker images, but initial days we did use it to store the artifacts. Here you can see there are multiple repositories. Mostly we are going to use at this point releases and snapshot. I'll explain both of them what exactly is the difference. Coming back here. Okay. So now what exactly we have to do? See, one thing you should know very clearly, that whenever from one server to another server, if you want to connect, what things you'll be needing? First, you'll be needing an URL and you'll be needing a credentials, right? That means these two things will be needed. So if from Jenkins to Nexus we want to connect, we need to have these two things, right? So the thing is ki URL we can add anywhere. Even if someone is able to see URL, it's not going to hurt. But we need to make sure that credentials we are storing somewhere safe. So for URL, what we need to do, we'll go to CI pipeline, go to pom.xml. Many people ask, like, do DevOps engineers work on actual source code? Yes. So this is one of the files, like dependency file, pom.xml, Node.js, we have package.json, Python, we have requirement.txt. So those are the core files that as a DevOps engineer, we have to work. Here also, there is one section, distribution management, where if you look closely, we have Maven releases and snapshot, like URL added, repository URL. So these things we need to modify. And we can get, first let's go Maven releases. I can click on copy, get the URL, and we can paste it here. Similarly for snapshot, I can paste. Okay, many people do not understand the difference between them as well. Give me 1 second. In simple words, you just understand that releases artifacts is going to be the artifacts we are going to use in production. Snapshot artifacts are for lower environments. Simple as that, you can understand. Now, if I show one more thing, so you can see the version of the artifact snapshot is written. That means Nexus is automatically going to understand that it's a lower environment artifact. So it's going to store that inside snapshot repository. If I remove snapshot, it's going to be stored inside releases repository. Remember that. I can copy this. Sorry, save this. Now this is done. So that means URL we have added. Now we need to add credentials. For credentials, we need to go to manage files, manage Jenkins, and there is one section you see, managed files. This option is visible only because we have installed a plugin. Which plugin? Config file provider. Click on that, click on add new config, and click on global Maven. See, you can see there are files for other languages also. Global Maven settings, and we can provide a name. Let's say I'm just going to write DevOps Shack. And here, now this is the settings.xml file where we can store credentials. And scroll down till you find this section. Remove the comment. Okay. And now here we have to add the repository repo ID and username password. So first we have Maven dash releases. Username is admin, and password also we have to add. We can add like this. Sorry. And this is going to be for snapshot. Now, many of you might be thinking, Aditya, it's still visible. If someone who has access to Jenkins can see it, correct. But we have another option also. You can see server credentials. And I would highly recommend when you are practicing with this, try to add credentials here. Okay. So now we have added credentials also, we have added URL also. So we can go back to pipeline, configure, scroll down and artifact. Open pipeline syntax, and here you'll be able to find with Maven. Why this option available? Because we installed the plugin correctly. Maven 3 we can select. JDK default one is being used. This no global Maven we can select our own, which is 𝗕𝗵𝗁𝗀 one. Generate the block, copy that, put it here. Now here you can simply write the command sh mvn deploy, and it's going to deploy to Nexus. Okay, so Nexus is also done. Next step that we have to add is going to be for building Docker images. Okay, so first let me create a stage. Build Docker images. Let's make it better by writing build and tag. Okay. Now, when you are writing Docker stage, make sure to write the commands inside a script block. So there are certain commands that requires a script block kind of block to get to make sure that they are able to execute commands. Now again, we will go to pipeline syntax, and here we will see one option with Docker registry. You can see this one. Open that. Now we have to registry URL. Now, since I'm using a public registry, so I don't have to provide URL. But if you are using some kind of private registry, then you have to provide the URL. We have to add credentials. Again, I can go here, manage Jenkins, global, add credentials, and username I can get 𝗖𝗵𝗃. Password we can put ID. So ID again, I want to just make it everything in sync. So I'll just check what ID I used. Docker-grid. Fine. And we can generate. Now we can refresh the page once. Select again with Docker registry. Credentials we can. Okay, this one. Generate the block. Copy that block and come here. Now, my requirement is that the Docker images, they are going to have tag. Tag is basically, you can say, they are going to have versions. So what should be the version? Like every time we build, what exactly should be a version? If you want, we can keep it latest, but that is not going to be a best practice. So first we are going to write these steps. We can write Docker build -t /gswal /gc bank column. Now here we want that here we want that 1 second. Image name also I need to just make sure it's in sync. Backup. Okay, talking about version, so I want it to be you can say kind of variable, so that every time I run it should be changing. And what variable we could use? So there are many inbuilt variable for Jenkins. For example, one of the variables is known as this one, build number. So every time you run the pipeline, the build number will increase. Okay, so what we can do, we can add this in our environment. Image tag. Now image tag will be our variable, and build number is a default variable of existing variable inside Jenkins. And this thing we can add here in this format, $image tag. Okay, sorry. First we need to add it here. Okay, Now it's simply pointing that we have a new variable image tag which is pointing to v build number. That means if I'm running the pipeline for the first time, then image tag will be v1. If second time, v2, like that. And now I can put here dollars and paste. After that, you have to provide location of Docker file. So it is it is existing on the root level directory. So I can just put dot. That means existing in current directory. Next thing that we want to scan the Docker image as well. So that we can do using Trivy. Again, I'm going to leave last two brackets. And here we can write Trivy image scan. And here we will write Trivy image format is going to be table. Here we can name the image like then the report like this. And instead of dot, now we have to provide Docker image name, which is this one. Okay. Once scanning is done, we can push the Docker image to our Docker Hub registry. And here we can, stage name will be push Docker images. And here I can put Docker push, and let's remove the dot. Okay. So let us run this as well one time, and let's see how it goes. As you can see, only 2 builds as of now we have ran. So one thing you'll be able to notice when we ran the first time, 4 second, 10 second, 8 second, 6 second. Second time, 1 second, 3 second, 5 second, 1 second, like that. So why it is taking lesser time second time we ran? Because the dependencies that were needed for Jenkins to perform, like for Maven, all those dependencies were downloaded in the first time only. And second time, they were already available in local directory, so they were utilized from there. Okay, this is happening. We can check the progress here also. Docker image is getting built. Some of you might be getting bored, but reality is that when you are working these kind of pipelines, it takes really a lot of time. But again, discipline is the key. So if you are, just try to learn as much as you can these days. Reality, I'll tell you, when I was joining as a fresher and I was joining as a DevOps engineer, the only interview question they asked, they were very easy. Like, what are CI/CD pipelines? Can you like basic Git commands they asked, and very basic things they were asking. But at this point, if you are going to transition or if you are going to join as a DevOps engineer, they try to ask so many like complex questions. The reason I'll tell you the reality why they are asking very complex questions, because at this point the number of candidates is really more, and so they think they have very good opportunity, they have very huge number of choices, so they try to find someone who is perfect and who is having knowledge of all the tools and all the concept in DevOps. That's why at this point, I even whenever I learn, I try to learn everything, whatever is available, I try to learn it. Same thing usually I suggest to everyone, that whatever you can learn, just learn. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's go to Jenkins and let's run this Docker images. Sorry, I'll run with sudo. You can see version 2. So our pipeline was version second pipeline, so version 2. That means this part is working. Okay. One more thing, let us try. Let's automate this pipeline so that like whenever we push something to our CI repository, this pipeline should be triggered. For that, first of all, what you have to do, there are many, there are I think 2 or 3 plugins are available for webhook, but we are going to go install the perfect one, which is generic webhook trigger. You have to install that. And let's wait for this to complete. Go to your pipeline, configure, and now you should be able to see one specific option, generic webhook trigger. And we have to like do some kind of configuration here. Okay, what configuration? So I have my document ready. This is one of my this document here, course document webhook trigger. So here Now first we have to go to post parameters ref variable ref expression $dot ref. Basically, a reference is going to refer the sorry, give me 1 second. Ref $.ref. Okay, we are creating a separate variable, and then we have to scroll down token. Inside this token, we can write anything. I'm just going with 𝗵𝗶𝗃. The thing is, it's going to be a token that will be used to authenticate from Jenkins to GitHub side, so that from GitHub can also trigger. Okay, so, a token. You see this option token credential. Basically, these two are same. If you don't want that this should be visible, then you can add it here. But for me, it doesn't matter at this point, so I'll just leave it here. And sorry, coming to the optional filter, I guess this is fine. This is fine. Now, in optional filter, you have to write in this format. Branch name. So see, basically here, the branch we need to refer that on which branch some push is happening, then the pipeline should be triggered. So I want that out of all the branches, only if changes are pushed to main branch, then only the pipeline should be triggered. In text, we can put $ref. And that's fine. Now let us save this, and here we have some kind of URL, I guess. Okay, so let us copy this. Let us create a proper URL that we'll be needing. First, we have Jenkins URL we need to get, which we can get from here. Make sure that no extra slashes are there, and then we remove. Okay, token here. What was the token? If you remember, token was DevOps CICD. Just make sure spelling is correct. 𝗙𝗃. Okay, so this is going to be our webhook URL. Okay, so we will copy this. Basically, you can call it as payload URL also, and we will save it. We will go to our go to settings. Here you will see webhooks. Now let me remove the previous one. Now I have enabled MFA, so it will ask me for this. Give me 1 second. Five. Okay, click on add webhook. Payload URL we already have. This one should be JSON. Secret we don't need to put. Let us try this once. Add webhook. Okay, you can see this tick mark. That means it is working fine, right? Now still we need to test this, so I'm going to make some changes. I'm just going to form. I'm going to add a space. Okay, and commit that. And we will go here. Now you can see here third version of the pipeline or third build started automatically. And if I open the console log, we can see generic cause. Okay, so in this way you can see, like, if I push any specific branch, that is main branch in our case, it's going to trigger the pipeline. Okay, this part is done. So stages in CI is done. One thing that we need to add now is going to be sorry. Now what we want to update this. So anytime we build our CI pipeline, it should be updating the CD project repository. So how we can do? So we could use a stream editor command. Stream editor, which is going to what it can do, it can go to the file, make the changes, and then just update the file. What command we need to add? So if I show you here, what we can do, first of all, we need to run this command, clean workspace, because the problem that if you don't run this command, clean workspace command, if you don't run, the problem that you are going to get is, if I show you workspaces CI, you can see this .git folder. So it exists, and it exists, but it is of CI pipeline, CI project. So for that purpose, what we have to do, we need to make sure that we are running clean workspace, then it's empty, then we clone the CD repository, go inside the repository, update the changes, and then we leave it. Okay. So let us add, we can add, here one core command that we are adding is stream editor sed command. Okay. Now let me explain you what exactly is happening here. So if you look closely, first we have sed, which is for stream editor -i. -i means it's going to modify the existing file instead of creating a new file. Okay. Then we have s means substitute. Now what exactly needs to be substituted? So it's going to find this pattern, backup ::. Once it find it, it's going to update it with this. Okay. And where exactly it's going to update? Inside this folder, manifest folder, inside manifest YAML. Okay. Then it's going to verify, echo, update the file changes. Then it's going to verify by running the cat command. Cat command is used to view the content. So it's going to view the content. Then we can provide any username and user email, and then we can add, commit, and push. Okay. So this is how we can update the Docker image changes to our this one. Second, sorry. I can copy this and okay. So let us add this and let's see if it works or not. This is basically a command to just update the CD repository with Docker image tag. And go here, make sure you leave the last two brackets, add it. Okay, and we can run this. Now just to make sure that so I'm going to remove the existing image because it's going to occupy some space and I don't want that. Okay. Coming back here, now we can monitor the pipe. Okay, we have some error and let's see. Okay, I think we have some extra bracket or something. Let's see if it works or not. Okay, this is done. Now we can verify the changes. If I refresh the page, V5, we can see clearly we have V5. That means it is able to update the CD repository, and we have our CI pipeline is automated as of now. Okay. Now this is working fine. One thing here we can add, which is going to be mail notification. So let us try that as well. If it works, okay. For that, first of all, what you have to do, you have to go on browser and you have to go on this URL. Basically, what you have to do, since you want to configure it, you have to set up an app password for Gmail. Now, app password will be working only if you have enabled MFA, two-step authentication. If you have enabled, then only it will work. And when you click the URL, it's going to ask you to put the credential. Once you put correctly your password, then it's going to open this page, app password. Here you can provide any name like Jenkins, create, and this is the password. Now the thing is this password is safe. When I say safe, it means that this using this password nobody can log into your Gmail, but this password is specific for platforms like Jenkins. Okay, now once we have password ready, we can go to Jenkins. Now we can go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, system, scroll at the end where you'll be able to find email notifications, scroll up, and there will be extended email notification. Both of them we are going to configure. This is just like advanced version of email notification, SMTP. So SMTP in our case is smtp.gmail.com. Port we can write 465. Credential, we have to add the credentials once again. We can use give me 1 second. Two ports I'm going to open. 587 is already open, which is required. Second one I'm opening is going to be 465. So if you sorry. So if you use SSL, in that case you can open 465. If you use TLS, then you can open this one 587. Give me 1 second. Okay, first let us do one thing. Let us add credentials. In credentials, what we have to add, if I go here, global. Okay, first I'm going to add the Gmail, 246@gmail.com. And in password, we have to add the app password, which is going to be this one. ID, we can write like mail create or something. Okay, and coming back here. Okay, let's try with SSL first. And then we will go here also smtp.gmail.com. Email you have to put, and after email you have to put the app password that you have generated. Okay, let's try with SSL. And here I can go with 465. Save, and let's try one time. Let's try some other email. See, email successfully sent. So what we can do, we can go to the mail where we just receive. Okay, so we did receive email notification, but 1 second. We did receive email notification. Okay, that means this configuration is working fine. Okay, make sure that you are saving it. Then go back to dashboard, open the pipeline, and we have to add this. Go to configure. Okay, so basically this pipeline stage we can add in post notifications. So in post notification, how we are adding in post, make sure that you are leaving only last bracket, and then now talking about this code. So this is one of the code that we used in my previous company, so I just modified it and then I'm using it. Okay, one more thing. 1 2 3 just make sure brackets are correctly numbered. 3 brackets here, and we have 4 brackets here. Any other bracket? Okay, let's see. We'll just copy and later we can see if it works or not. If not, then we can modify it. Okay, now here what things you have to modify. 2 section you can put and multiple, like if you want to send to multiple people, so you can just add multiple emails. And I'll explain you the one thing, the way that we used to do. So we had a configuration file inside which we had added hundreds of emails, and that email were actually tagged or attached to specific users. It was like, sorry, users with projects. So if I want to send to let's say 5 users of specific project, if I want to send email notification of all the members who are part of specific project, so I will put the project and then all the emails. We had specific configuration, that way it was happening. Here if you see from and reply to, that also I have configured, so that if someone wants to reply to, they can reply to this specific email. Okay, so let us do one thing. Let us try to run this and let's see if it works or not. This will take a little bit of time. Okay, also one more thing, team. I guess Kubernetes is configured. Sorry, Kubernetes cluster is created. So what things we have to do now? If I show you, first we are going to install kubectl, because that's how we will be able to access our cluster. Okay, but the problem I'll show you, the problem that you are going to face now when you set up. See, I have installed kubectl, but if I run this kubectl get nodes to see the worker nodes, we are getting error. This is some error that almost many people have faced this. This is happening because at this point there is no authentication made from this VM to Kubernetes cluster. So what we have to do, we have to create an updated this file, kubeconfig file. So we are going to run this command, AWS EKS region update kubeconfig, which is going to update the local kubeconfig file. Now kubeconfig file is a configuration file which contains information about the cluster as well as certificates, and everything will be there. So I can execute this command, and now if I run kubectl again, you can see now we are able to see version is 1.32. I guess it's the latest or so, and we have 3 worker nodes readily available. Next thing what we have to do, kubectl installed, right? Guys, do not see, later on you can ask questions, not right now. Let me complete, then you can ask questions. Okay, now as I told that we are going to use almost all the tools. So here we are going to use EKS also, and I'll explain in a bit why we are using. And first we will install EKS tool. Helm also we are going to use, so I'm going to install Helm as well. And now first command that we have to run, EKS utils associate OIDC provider with our cluster. Now why we have to do that? Basically what happens inside Kubernetes cluster, the service accounts as well as resources, what I want, they should be having permission to access some of the AWS resources like EBS volume, because we want that inside Kubernetes cluster, EBS volume should be able to be created dynamically. Okay, that means service account should be having permission to do that. So we are running this command so that those services can assume IAM rules. Okay, so I will execute this. Let's wait for which command I ran. I think to install Helm, I guess. Okay, let's wait for this to complete. Now the thing is, at this point, if some company is smart, they are definitely going to work with Helm, because it gives you very much freedom and a very high level of access to work with your projects. And because it's almost similar to IAC only, because whatever configuration you want your application to be having, you can simply put it in a Helm configuration file and that will work. Okay, next, so we can run this command also, so that resources can assume IAM roles. Then we are going to create one service account. Now why we are creating this service account? So this is going to be specific service account that is going to be used to create EBS volumes. Okay, and here if you see, we are attaching a policy. Which policy we are attaching? EBS. Okay, EBS related, so that it can create EBS driver policy, I guess. And one more thing, as I told, CloudFormation also is an IAC, infrastructure as code. So here what we are doing, we are providing complete configuration. Once I click enter, what is going to happen? If I show you here, CloudFormation. So EKS ETL is going to ask CloudFormation to create the whatever resource we have defined. You can see here create in progress, that just started right now. Okay, so remember that in AWS, CloudFormation is a IAC, and EKS ETL, whenever you create any resource with EKS ETL, it's going to go, those resource request is going to go to CloudFormation. Okay, and we will wait for this to complete. Once this is done, then 3 more resources we need to create. What resources? First, for the EBS-CSI driver, which is also going to be responsible for creating the volumes, and Nginx ingress controller, then cert manager, which will be responsible for the certificates. Okay, so we will copy that, and yeah, this is done. And this, okay, so these are the core commands that we have done now, that we are done with now. Next thing that we have to set up is RBAC, role-based access control. Okay, so for that, that information is updated inside here, RBAC. Okay, so first, see here we are, first we have to create a service account, but again, the service account we are creating inside web apps, right? So we need to make sure that we have web apps namespace created. So I can run the command kubectl create ns web apps. Okay, and it is created, and now we can create the service accounts. Service account, first resource service account, I have copied it, 𝗖𝗍𝗃 dot YAML, paste it here, save this, and kubectl apply -f svc YAML. Service account created, but this service account is not having any kind of permissions. So now we are going to create role. Now here, if you look closely, what things we are creating, see, we are creating a role that will be having permission only on web apps namespace and on resources, secrets, config map, PVC, services, pods, deployments, replica sets, ingresses, and HPA. So let's do that as well. This role we are creating, vi r1.yaml. Paste it again. Already namespace defined, so we don't have to write it anywhere else. We can run kubectl apply -f r1 YAML. Now the thing is service account and role is created. Now next task is to assign this role to the service account. For that we have to create role binding. You can see here the service account name is Jenkins, namespace web apps, and this role, once we create this, then it's this above role will be assigned to the service account. So we can go here now. We can create vi rb1.yaml, paste it here, save this. Now kubectl apply -f. We have rb1. Okay. At this point, this service account has permission to execute or perform these tasks on these resources. Okay. Now, next thing, as I said, there are resources that has a scope over whole cluster instead of just namespace. Those are going to PVC, storage class, and these things. So we are going to create now new role, which is going to be cluster level role. We are going to write vi cr1.yaml. And you can see here nowhere we have defined any like namespace name. So I can write now kubectl apply -f cr1. Okay, now role is created, but we need to assign that role to Jenkins. So again, cluster role binding. vi crb1.yaml. Now, some of you might thinking why I'm not running these commands directly in Jenkins, because these are Kubernetes configuration commands. These are not part of CI/CD pipeline. These are we are configuring Kubernetes now. So I can run kubectl apply -f crb1. Sorry. Okay. This is done. Next thing that we want to do. So service account is created and it has enough roles and permissions to perform the deployments. Next thing is that I want to give to Jenkins the permission to perform deployment. For that, I need to create a token. Token means we can click here. It's going to take us to official page of Jenkins Kubernetes. And here we need to create a resource. We are going to copy that and it will be vi token.yaml. Now, few things we have to modify here. First, the service account name. In our case, the name of service account is Jenkins. So we need to modify that. And here, if you want secret name change, you can put like Jenkins-secret or anything you want. We can save this. Now, I need to create this secret inside web apps namespace, but the problem is that we can see here no namespace is defined, right? So what we can do, we can run the command like this: kubectl apply -f. Have the file created, right? Okay. kubectl apply -f token -n web apps. That means I'm saying that I want to create this resource inside web apps namespace. Okay, it is created. Next thing we have to do, kubectl describe secret. Name of the secret is Jenkins secret -n web apps. Why I ran that? Because there is this token which we are going to use for authentication. So I will copy that and I will keep it somewhere. This is done. Now we can go back to Jenkins and now we can create our CD pipeline. Let's just name this CD job type pipeline. Discard builds 2. Let's write hello world first. Let's create stages. First is going to be Git Checkout. And here we have to clone the repository, the CD repository. Okay, so we have repository here. I can, sorry, branch is main. Credentials we have already available. Generate. So this is the CD repository. We can copy that. You can put it here. One more thing, you make sure that you are checking in manifest files. In here, storage class is created, because if it is not created, then you won't be able to create the persistent volume. So make sure that it is created. Okay, coming back here. Now, here we have to write the stage for Kubernetes. So we will again go to pipeline syntax. Here we will search for with Kubernetes or something like that. Let's see if we have. Okay, so first we have endpoint clustering credentials. So in credentials, what credentials we have to add? We have to add the token that we just created. For that, we can go to manage Jenkins, credentials, global, add credentials, secret text, and the token that we have. This is the token, so copy that, save it. Let's say create cred, you can provide a name with kube config like that. Credentials we can select, server endpoint. So for that, we have to go to our EKS cluster in AWS. Scroll down, you'll see API server endpoint. So copy that. This cluster name that also we have, which is this one. namespace. If you want, you can include. If not, then also it won't cause an issue. So this is the block that we have. Copy that and let's paste it here. Now we have to write the commands. We have to write the command for deployment. Okay, if I show you that as well, we have separate Jenkins file. If you see, first we are deploying everything inside the manifest.yaml. Then we are deploying the HPA. Then we are running 𝗵𝗐. 𝗵𝗐, why we are running? So that because this deployment is going to take some time to get deployed properly. Okay, so let us do this. And okay, so let's run this one time and let's see what happens. Again, see, deployment might take some time. Okay, we have some issue. So kubectl not found. Now kubectl not found, why this error we are getting? Because on Jenkins, we are running now on Jenkins, or on Jenkins kubectl is not present. So what we can do, we already have the command to install kubectl, so we can install it directly on the Jenkins. And as I told, if you install any tool directly on Jenkins, you don't need to define it anywhere. So we can directly run it here. Remember this thing, see, some people get confused when I have to define inside the pipeline and when I don't. When you install directly here, you don't have to define, like Trivy. Okay, let's try again. It's running now. We have cluster issuer also, which we are going to deploy separately. Okay, it is successful. So first thing, we will go here on server. We can verify here kubectl get all -n web apps. So as of now, we can see that resources are getting created and we have some restarts also. Okay, why restart happening? Because immediately that storage, okay, the volume might not be available. So let us see that kubectl get sc. We can see that this storage class is there, and this is the storage class that I am using, EBS, that is going to be EBS, like it's going to create EBS volumes. Next thing, we are going to select kubectl get PV. So we can see that even persistent volume is created. So we can, okay, slowly everything is getting created. So now what we can do, we can move to other resource that we need to create. What are the resource? We need to create cluster issuer and ingress. So first, let us create this. These two commands I'm running separately because again, these are one time only we have to run commands. That's why I did not include it in pipeline. Now I can run ci.yaml. That is done, and then we have cubes. We have to create ingress also. But yeah, again, as you see, we have not yet done the domain mapping. Here, if you see very clearly, we are using Let's Encrypt. Why we are using it? Because it's freely available and it can get you SSL certificate for free. Next thing, that if you see here, www.𝗥𝗚𝗄. So basically, it depends on whatever domain you are having, you have to put it there. You have to modify the file and you have to put your domain here. And as per that, you have to modify these things as well. So I'm having this, and as soon as my ingress URL is created, then I'm going to add it here. Okay. And let's first create the resource and go here. YAML. You can save this. Okay, it is created. Now we can get information kubectl get ingress -n web apps. Now here this section you see address. As of now, as you can see clearly, it's empty because it's going to take a little bit of time to completely get created. So we have to wait for that. And meanwhile that is happening, we can proceed with our next step, which is to set up monitoring services. For that, we are going to add a using Helm. We are going to add a repository for Prometheus. See, the reason that I'm using Helm because it's very much easier to set up these tools. So what we can do, we can first of all add repository. Now this repository contains all the configuration files which can directly set up your tools. Okay, so let us run that. It is done. Next thing that we have to do, we have to create our own configuration file, because if we have any specific requirements, for example, I want that my Prometheus should be having load balancer, service type, storage should be this one, and like whatever configuration you want, you can define it in a specific file. That file is known as values.yaml file. Okay, so what I can do, I can copy this and create here as well, values.yaml, and we can put all the things here. And now we have to apply. Now we have to tell Helm that now use this configuration file that I have given, and using this create the whatever tools we have defined. So here the command goes like this: Helm upgrade install. Okay. Generally we can simply use command Helm install like that, but I'm using Helm upgrade install. Why? Because I'm using this because this is the kind of command that you can run, because Helm install usually runs for the first time. First time we have to use this, but this is the command Helm upgrade install. This is the command that you can use even first time and afterwards also. And here we can define the values, the file that, which has the configuration, and then namespace, like separate namespace I'm creating named monitoring. If that namespace is not present, then Helm is going to create it. So we are going to copy that and run this. You can see monitoring does not exist. Installing it now. So now whatever configuration we have defined, it's going to create it now. Okay, based on that, it's going to create the Prometheus and Grafana. So let's wait for this. Okay, that is done. Now if I show you one more thing, one issue that I used to face in this kubectl get all -n monitoring. Now if you see closely, only one load balancer URL is there, that is just for Grafana. Even though we have defined here that we want the load balancer service type for Grafana for other things also, but still for Prometheus it did not create. For that purpose, I have written separate command. Separately, we are running the patch command to make sure that load balancer URL is generated for all the resources. So I can simply run this as well. Okay, that is done. Meanwhile, we can check for ingress one more time. Now, if you look closely, you can see the address has been generated now. As I told, it takes a little bit of time to completely generate the address. Now, the first one which we have, bank app ingress, we have to copy this. We have to go to our GoDaddy domain, DNS records, and as I said, when you have URL, you configure it inside CNAME records. So we have to click on edit, remove the previous one, and paste the new one. Click on save. But the problem that you might face sometimes, because whenever you add this, it takes some time to like completely apply. Okay, one more thing, team, I wanted to tell you, I taught in previous I think video, but I'm not sure how many people saw that. You see there we have a records, right? And as I told, key when you have IP address generated, you can add it to a record. Okay, now let us say we have like this, right? a, then @ then IP. Okay. Then we'll be able to access our application, let's say, on IP address like that. Let's say domain is like this, xyz.com. So we will be able to access the application on xyz.com if we configure this properly. Now let's say that I'm setting up for Git. I'm setting up custom GitHub. So I want that my URL to access GitHub custom GitHub should be like this: git.xyz.com. In that case, what you have to do, you have to use a record. Here, instead of @ you write git, then IP. And now this will work, and your application will be accessible on this URL, git.xyz.com. This is quite important thing, because in my company we use this kind of stuffs, because we have multiple tools set up, and we wanted to make everything in a following the best practice. So like we had our own Git server, so we had this kind of URL like this. Okay, coming back here, this is fine. So first thing that I want to check now, ns lookup w dot shackwars.co. See, as of now, it's not pointing. That means this IP address, this URL that I just added, it's not yet reflecting. This is going to take a little bit of time. Just make sure that you have properly added in CNAME record. Another way to just verify, you can go to like DNS propagation checker. Here you can put like this, www.shackwars.co. Record is CNAME, and we can try to check. See, it is, so for some places it is like propagated, but still there are places where it's not propagating properly. Okay, so we have to wait for some time. And okay, coming to monitoring part, kubectl get all -n, we have monitoring. Now if you look closely, we have the URLs available, so one by one we can access. First we can go to Grafana. Grafana is running now. The username passwords, if I show you, while setting up Grafana, you can see admin user admin password I have set up. Okay, that's why this values.yaml file are quite useful, because you can decide what username, what password you want. You can decide immediately. And we are logged in. Next thing, let us access our this one, Prometheus. It should be available or accessible on port 1990, I guess. Okay, here we can go to let's go target health. So at this point, there are multiple targets added to Prometheus, and all of them status showing. See, basically, whatever URLs you want to monitor, whatever services or like resources you want to monitor, those are going to be added here in target section. Okay. So what we can do now, we can go to connections, data sources, and here search for Prometheus. Click here, add new data source, URL. So we have the URL. And let's see, successfully queried. At this point, see, the way the repository that I'm using, it has multiple dashboards pre-created. Okay, and these are going to help you a lot of things. Like if I open this, let's say I want to monitor web apps. So inside web apps, these are the pods available, and you can monitor details. So I said why the main reason that the repository that I'm using, it's quite useful, because multiple amazing dashboards have already created. If I go again here, we can see details here. Okay, so it's like this is the best repository in my opinion. Okay, and from here all the different dashboards are created for monitoring different So team, as we can see now, the application is successfully deployed. It took a little bit of time because I guess the certificate was not able to be created. But now, as we can see, application is running fine on the custom domain that we have mapped, and that is also on HTTPS. That means SSL certificate is also created now. Okay. So yeah, that will be all for today. And also team, do not forget to check out our latest course, which is starting on 25th of March. Yeah, from previous batch, we had highest placement of Simranjit Singh of 40 LPA. If I click on latest course, and yeah, so as of now we are having a discount. I hope I have told you before also, and you can get the course for 800 500. Okay, so all the details will be in the description, syllabus included, so you can check it out, and if interested you can enroll there. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day.